I'm back with some more stories, and I'm gonna be trying to find a village in the meantime in Minecraft as I'm reading the stories. So I hope that you spend your time more meaningfully. Let's get into it. Okay, so this story reads AITA for cutting off my daughter after she slept with her sister's husband. This is a final update. Okay, so I, 59F, have two daughters, Emma, 35F, and Chloe, 33F. Emma has been married to her husband, 36 male, for 11 years, and they have two children together. Chloe has been married to her husband, 34 male, for 8 years, and they have one 5-year-old son. About 6 weeks ago, Emma called me just after midnight, completely hysterical. She told me she'd suspected for months that her husband was hiding something. He had become distant, constantly guarded his phone, and was always finding excuses to stay late at work. That night, after he fell asleep beside her, she looked through his phone for the first time. She found years of explicit messages between him and Chloe. The affair had been going on for almost 4 years. Emma was devastated. She kept asking me how her own sister could do this to her. A few days later, we were at my brother's birthday party when Emma confronted Chloe outside. Chloe denied everything at first and insisted Emma had misunderstood. Emma had misunderstood. When Emma said she had read the messages herself, Chloe completely fell apart. She started crying, admitted the affair, and kept repeating, "I don't know why I did it. I'm so sorry. It was the biggest mistake of my life." Emma asked how 4 years could possibly be quote unquote a mistake. Chloe had no answer. The argument escalated into a screaming match. Chloe tried to slap Emma, but several relatives stepped in before she could. Chloe's husband quietly took their son home after realizing what had happened. Within days, he told Chloe he wanted a divorce. Emma also filed for divorce after her husband admitted everything. After it all came out, Chloe called me 82 times in one day. I answered once because I hoped she was calling to explain herself. Instead, she cried the entire time, begging me not to abandon her. She said she had already lost her husband and was probably going to lose shared custody of her son and couldn't bear losing her mother too. She said she knew she didn't deserve forgiveness but begged me to not hate her forever. I told her I couldn't look at her the same way anymore. I said this wasn't one bad decision, it was years of lying to her sister, her husband, and the rest of us. I told her I loved her because she is my daughter, but I didn't want contact with her for the foreseeable future. Since then, I have ignored every attempt she's made to reach out. This is where my family thinks I'm wrong. My sisters say Chloe has already lost everything: her marriage, her relationship with her sister, many of her friends, and likely the family she dreamed of giving her son. They say she's genuinely remorseful, has started individual therapy, and isn't trying to justify what she did. They argue that if a mother won't stand by her child after they've hit rock bottom, who will? They also remind me that cutting Chloe off means my grandson is growing up without his grandmother, even though he has done nothing wrong. I understand all of that, but every time I think about welcoming Chloe back into my life, I picture Emma reading those messages alone in the middle of the night, realizing that two of the people who she trusted most had been lying to her for years. I don't know if I can move past that. My family says I'm punishing Chloe forever for something she already deeply regrets. I feel like I'm simply refusing to pretend it never happened. Am I the A word? I know a lot of people are used to seeing cheating posts and always thinking they are fake, But what would you do if you were in my shoes? Update. I know it's very early for me to post an update and I wasn't planning on it, but after reading the comments on my first post, I decided I needed one final conversation with Chloe before I completely closed the door. I went to her house yesterday and I expected her to be emotional after calling me 82 times in one day. But she was surprisingly calm. I asked her one question. I still couldn't understand why. She admitted she'd been attracted to Emma's husband for years. She said what started as admiration eventually became feelings. And over time, they crossed the line. Instead of ending it, they kept convincing themselves it would be the last time. She insisted she regretted everything. I asked if she had spoken to Emma. She told me the only contact she had was one text before Emma blocked her on everything. Emma told her she had destroyed their family, taken away her children's stable home, and that she hoped the affair had been worth losing a sister forever, as far as she was concerned. Chloe no longer had one. Emma blocked her immediately afterward. Chloe also admitted she later waited outside the school gates hoping to speak to Emma when she came to collect the kids. Emma refused to speak to her, warned her to stay away from her and the children, and told her if she ever approached them again, she regretted. Chloe left crying. I told Chloe her waiting outside the school was completely inappropriate, regardless of her intentions. She insisted she only wanted to apologize and prove she cared about Emma. I then asked if she truly felt remorse. That's when I completely lost my patience. Instead of taking full responsibility, Chloe started telling me Emma's marriage had already been falling apart, that Emma and her husband had been drifting apart for years, and that he often confided in her. She admitted the affair was wrong but repeatedly tried to place part of the blame on Emma, saying if their marriage had been happier, none of this would have happened. I was furious. I honestly couldn't believe I had raised someone capable of thinking like this. I told her there is no marriage bad enough to justify secretly sleeping with your own sister's husband for 4 years. I told her I wasn't just disappointed, I was ashamed that she was my daughter. The more she tried to justify herself, the angrier I became. The conversation eventually turned to her own divorce. She talked about how difficult everything had been for her and how her husband still plans to move to Washington with their son to be closer to his family. She said she may have to move there too if she wants to stay close to him. As she spoke, I realized almost everything was about what she had lost: her marriage, her home, her reputation, and possibly seeing her son every day. Very little of it was about Emma or the damage she had caused. At the end of the conversation, Chloe asked if we were cool now. I told her no, we were not cool, and we might never be. I said that if I ever found it in my heart to reconcile with her, it would be on my own terms and in my own time, not because she thought one conversation could erase 4 years of lies and betrayal. I walked out feeling angrier than I arrived. I honestly don't know what to do anymore. I love both of my daughters, but after that conversation, I'm not convinced Chloe understands the pain she has caused. Final new update. I said after my last update that I'd come back one last time once things had settled down a bit. So this will be my final post. First, thank you to everyone who commented on my last two posts. I read and replied to more comments than I expected. Some of them were difficult to read, but they gave me a lot to think about. To answer the question I saw the most, Chloe's son is definitely her husband's. Chloe's white, her husband is black, and their son is mixed race, so there was never any question about this. The divorces are still going ahead. Nothing has been finalized yet, but neither couple is trying to work things out anymore. A lot of people also asked about my sister. Yes, they knew about the affair before Emma found out. They admitted they stayed quiet because they thought it was a family matter and hoped it would end before anyone got hurt. I understand why they thought that, but I can't agree with it. Emma spent years being lied to by people around her knew the truth. I've decided to cut both of my sisters out of my life. I don't know if that will be forever, but they have broken my trust. Over the last few weeks, I have spoken to both of my daughter. I have spoken to both of my daughters separately. I asked Emma if enough time had passed for her to even think about talking to Chloe. She said no. She told me she isn't waking up angry anymore, but that doesn't mean she has forgiven her. She said she accepted that the truth was always going to come out eventually. The only thing she could control was that what she did after she found out. She also said she has no interest in having a sister anymore. As for her husband, she told me she has made one thing very clear. She will only respond if it's about the children or the divorce. Everything else gets ignored. What surprised me was that he hasn't stopped trying. He has sent long apology messages, videos about forgiveness, and even Bible verses. For real, bro. None of us are religious, so that confused all of us. He keeps saying she was the only woman he has ever loved, and that he made one terrible mistake. Emma hasn't replied to any of those messages. I also found out something Chloe never told me. In my last update, I said Chloe told me the only message Emma sent before blocking her was that she was no longer her sister. That wasn't true. Emma later showed me the messages. Before Emma sent that final text, Chloe had blamed her for what happened. She told Emma that maybe if she had paid more attention to her marriage, things would have been different. She also said that if her husband had felt happier at home, he wouldn't have looked somewhere else. Reading those messages made me feel sick. When I confronted Chloe, she admitted she had sent them. She said she was angry, desperate, and trying to make herself feel less guilty. She told me she regretted sending them almost immediately, but by then, Emma had already blocked her. Chloe also told me she's moving to Washington once everything is finalized, so, so she can stay close to her son, but in Florida. They allow divorced families to stay, so I don't know why his father is planning to move there to be closer to his family, and Chloe doesn't want to be too far away from her child. She admitted she had tried contacting Emma's husband after everything came out, but he never answered any of her messages. She eventually stopped trying. She also told me she knows she'll never get her old life back, but she hopes moving will give her a chance to start over. I told her that starting over doesn't erase what happened. She agreed. A lot of people asked if I've forgiven Chloe. I haven't. I still love her because she's my daughter, but I don't trust her anymore. And right now, we don't have a relationship. Maybe that changes one day. Maybe it doesn't. I honestly doesn't know. This whole situation has changed our family forever. Emma lost her husband and her sister. Chloe lost her marriage, her relationship with her sister, and most of her family. My sisters lost me because they chose to stay quiet. This will be my last update. I hope one day all of us can find some peace, even if we never become a family again. Thank you, Reddit. I, 21 female, don't want my boyfriend, 25 male, to ask for my hand in marriage. Trigger warnings, possible infidelity, mentions abuse, past trauma. I, 21 female, have been dating my boyfriend, 25 male, for almost 2 years now. We met in college and things have been an absolute dream so far. He's kind and supportive. comes from a great background and has always put me first. We've always known that we both want to get married someday, and we've discussed at length what that means to us, and our views align for the most part. The problem is he wants to ask my incredibly abusive father for my hand in marriage. For context, my father was physically, emotionally, and financially abusive of everyone in our household. I vividly remember the way the tone of the entire home shifted when we saw his car pull up in the driveway. My parents never got divorced. They are separated now, but are more interested in keeping up appearances than actually going through the process of divorce. That being said, I had rather traumatic childhood. I don't think my boyfriend understands this, as he grew up in a very loving and supportive two-parent household. His parents do still very much love his parents do still very much in love today. I feel like we have the same convo fairly often. Me. Oh, when are you going to ask? Me. Oh, when are you going to ask him when I speak with your father? Me. I don't mean to speak to my father, and he hasn't had a hand in raising me, outside of financial obligations, since late at school. He literally moved out of our family home to get away from us. I don't feel comfortable with that. Him. Well, I've got to do it the right way. I'm still going to propose regardless, so it doesn't even matter what his answer is. Me. So why don't we do it? And then we go around and around in circles. And then we go around and around in circles like that. My financial stance is this. If after everything I've told you, you still feel the need to ask him and do it the right way, then you might as well just not propose. Is this an unreasonable decision? I almost feel like he's not convinced that he's a bad person, and I've already deemed my dad undeserving of participating in this convo. Why can't he accept that? Top comments. Commenter 1. I would have one final conversation with him. My father was and is incredibly abusive to me. I do not want him in any aspect of my life. You insisting on a misogynistic tradition over respecting my wishes makes me deeply concerned about how you will take my concerns throughout our life together. You can examine why you are so comfortable disregarding what's important to me, or we can end our relationship right now. Update. So I ended up breaking up with him. I want to start off by saying thank you to anyone who replied to the last post. I'm someone who can be blinded by the good in people, but your comments put things into perspective for me. I did end up showing him the post, and his initial reaction was that everyone commenting was a single bitter bitch. Yeah, I had never heard him speak about anyone that way. I guess the mask finally dropped. A couple of hours after that, he ended up saying, "Fine, I won't ask her that, just your mom." This was definitely just an attempt to save things, since he could tell I was being distant with him. We dated for about another 2 months after that. I know. I was trying to find ways to mend things because I'm a dummy. After the initial convo, I went through a fast track of realizations and saw that we were so misaligned in so many different ways. I'm not even sure how we had made it as far as we did. Eventually, it got to a point where I think he was just doing things to get me to break up with him, since things weren't clearly working out. Some of those things include taking a trip and staying with a friend that regularly cheats on her boyfriend. Damn, bro. Saying I didn't sign up for a therapy session every time I would try to talk through things. Letting his phone die every time he went out. Being overly cautious with his phone when we were previously pretty lax about opening each other's phones. Not in a stupid way, mainly for finding documents, responding to texts or emails for one another, etc. Unfortunately, the list goes on, but I'd rather not relive all of that. Clearly, he got what he did, what he wanted and deserved, so he did the standard, and oh no, please, we can write this up. He did the standard. Oh no, please, we can work this out. song and danced for a couple of weeks after I broke up with him, before finally giving up. I'm clearly not great at picking them, but I'm glad that I was able to get out of there before 2 years became 10 years. Again, thank you to anyone who gave advice on the original post. I really appreciate it. I'm not much of a writer, so I'm really sorry if this sucks. I hope this also answers a couple of questions folks had in the comments of the original post.